West Coast and Gold Coast, and Carlton and Fremantle.
Grandstand Farm.
Today from midday Sydney time on Radio Australia.
Australia News, I'm Robert McLean. The Australian government has set aside tens of millions of dollars for a new immigration detention centre in the Hunter region of New South Wales. Simon Cullen reports from Parliament House.
The government used yesterday's budget update to allocate $43 million for a new detention centre at Singleton. It says the plan is to potentially house more than 1,000 asylum seekers at the defence base there. It's also allocated almost $90 million to eventually accommodate up to 1,000 people at Bladen Point near Darwin. The Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young has accused the government of trying to sneak the news out.
It indicates that the government doesn't even believe their own rhetoric. It doesn't want anyone to find out.
Yesterday, the government revealed its plan to send asylum seekers to Papua New Guinea would cost more than $1 billion over the next 4 years. Simon Cullen, ABC News, Canberra.
The Mayor of Singleton, John Martin, says he's been taken completely by surprise at the announcement, which he heard this morning via the ABC. He says he doubts the town would have the resources to cope with 1,000 asylum seekers.
I wouldn't think so at the moment. So if they're looking at potentially 1,000 people, there would have to be improvements to the situation and housing and so on. And that would have to be done quickly if that's what they're going to do.
An international aid agency says the Australian government's decision to cut its foreign aid budget is counterproductive. The government has announced it's pushing back its deadline for reaching its international aid goal to save $900 million. Oxfam is warning slashing funding and redirecting money to Labor's plan for asylum seekers in Papua New Guinea will affect the world's poorest people. Spokeswoman Kelly Dent says it's a misuse of government money.
The Australian government does have a responsibility to its own citizens, but we know that properly targeted aid can help prevent conflict. Now, prosperous and stable countries make better trading partners and also are more likely to protect their citizens from exactly the types of abuses that force people to flee their homes.
A senior US foreign affairs official says Al-Qaeda appears to be behind the threat that's prompted several American embassies around the world to close on Sunday. Chairman of the House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee, Ed Royce, says the threat emanates from the Middle East and in Central Asia. It's the first mass closure of US embassies and consulates since the first anniversary of the September 11 attacks. Meanwhile, Britain will close its embassy in Yemen on Sunday and Monday due to increased security concerns. In Australia, the AFL says it will release the findings of an interim report on Essendon's 2012 supplements program to the club in due course. The Australian Sports Anti-Doping Authority began looking into the regime in February. The AFL last night revealed it's received a copy of the interim report and will review its findings before passing it on to Essendon. The league's legal counsel, Andrew Dillon, says Asada's investigation has been thorough but will continue.
The report consists of more than 400 pages, referencing over 13,000 documents, including transcripts of interviews with over 130 witnesses. I also want to commend the AFL's Integrity Unit, led by Brett Clothier, for their assistance to Asada.
In a statement, Essendon says it looks forward to receiving the report. Now with more sport, here's Mark Hyde.
Australia has a 475-run lead after day 2 of the third Ashes Test at Old Trafford. England is 2 for 52 at stumps and replied to Australia's first innings of 7 declared for 527. Australian skipper Michael Clarke made 187 runs and says he's pleased his side could build on its effort on the opening day.
All the batters did a great job, and then to get a couple of wickets tonight is exceptional from the boys. Look, a lot of hard work still left in this test match, but a pretty good start.
The Sydney Roosters have moved ahead of South Sydney at the top of the NRL ladder after thrashing Penrith 42 points to 6 last night in Sydney. Newcastle remains in 8th place after its 18-all draw with the Brisbane Broncos. North Melbourne's slim AFL Finals hopes received a boost after a thrilling 10-point win over Geelong at Docklands last night. The Kangaroos upset the Cats 96 points to 86 to move within 8 points of the top 8. And Kate Campbell has won Australia's 3rd gold medal at the World Swimming Championships in Barcelona. Campbell won gold in the women's 100 metres freestyle.
And finally, talk show host Ellen DeGeneres has been announced as the host of next year's Oscars in March. It'll be the second time she's assumed hosting duties for the Academy Awards. That ends this bulletin of news from Radio Australia. It's Saturday, the 3rd of August.
I think I knew I wanted to write books, as early as I knew what a book was. When I had my first job, I went into the British Health Service. I was an administrator there. This was a very useful experience for at least 2 of my books.
English author often referred to as the Queen of Crime, P.D. James was born Phyllis Dorothy James at Oxford in 1920. She's the author of 16 crime novels, 12 of them featuring the poet-detective Adam Dalgliesh. She's also written 2 non-fiction books. A widow of a doctor, she worked as a principal hospital administrator in London, and it wasn't until she was 39 years old that she wrote her first novel, Cover Her Face. Apparently she chose the name P.D. James because it looked good on a book jacket. She's chaired the Booker Prize panel of judges, been on the BBC Board of Governors, and was made a life peer in 1992.
Both the clergy and laity voted yes by a comfortable margin. Delegates warned of an apostate church that would break with the Bible and with most of the Anglican Communion.
It was on this day in 2003 that the Anglican Church in America voted to approve the appointment of an openly gay bishop. The Reverend Canon Gene Robinson of New Hampshire was approved by a substantial majority of the Episcopal Church's House of Deputies, composed of clergy and lay people. The decision brought an angry response from conservatives and religious leaders in the US and all over the world. The vote by the House of Bishops to confirm Gene Robinson's appointment was delayed after allegations of sexual misconduct were made against him. The charges were dropped and the House of Bishops voted for the Anglican Church's first openly gay bishop by a 2/3 majority.
I left my heart. My son has been managing me for about 17 years now, and he's very intelligent, and he had his finger on the pulse of the young yuppies, A lot of them liked all kinds of music, not just one type.
American singer Tony Bennett. He was born Antonio Benedetto in New York City on this day in 1926.
He also knew that I used to do 7 shows a day at the Paramount Theater, and the management would tell us, you're singing to everybody here, don't sing to one demographic group.
He began singing at an early age and fought in the final stages of World War II as an infantryman with the US Army in the European theatre of war. Afterwards, he developed his singing techniques, signed with Columbia Records, and had his first #1 pop song, Because of You, in 1951. He reached an artistic peak in the late 1950s with albums such as The Beat of My Heart and Basie Sings, Bennett Sings. In 62, he recorded his signature song, I Left My Heart, in San Francisco. In the 60s and 70s, his career suffered an extended downturn, but in the 80s and 90s, he staged a remarkable comeback, putting out gold record albums again and expanding his audience to the MTV generation.